The Texas heat was merciless that August afternoon in 1994, turning the parking lot of Guitar Center in Arlington into something that felt like standing on the surface of the sun. The asphalt shimmered with waves of heat distortion, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with that particular thickness that makes breathing feel like work. This was North Texas in the dog days of summer, where even the concrete seems to sweat, and the only relief comes from the blast of air conditioning when someone opens a door. But 17-year-old Jake Morrison wasn't thinking about the heat. He sat on the curb outside the store's entrance, his back against the sun-baked brick wall, a battered guitar case open beside him with a piece of cardboard propped against it. The cardboard read in careful block letters, "Dean ML for sale, $200, please." Jake had been sitting there for almost 4 hours, watching people walk past without even a glance. Some folks looked at him with suspicion, like he might be panhandling. Others looked through him like he was invisible. A few stopped long enough to glance at the guitar case before shaking their heads and moving on. The Dean ML inside the case wasn't a vintage collector's item, but it was a serious guitar. Black finish with white lightning bolt stripes running down the body in that distinctive angular Dean shape that looked like it was designed by someone who understood that metal guitars should look dangerous. The finish was worn in places where hands had gripped it thousands of times, where picks had scraped across it during aggressive downstrokes, where sweat had oxidized the hardware. This was a working musician's instrument, a guitar that had seen stages and garage practices and late-night jam sessions that stretched until dawn. And it had belonged to Jake's older brother, Michael. Michael Morrison had been 21 years old when the cancer diagnosis came. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the doctors said, using words that sounded like a foreign language to the Morrison family. Aggressive, they said. Advanced, they said. Michael had ignored the symptoms for months, the fatigue and the unexplained bruising, because he'd been too busy playing guitar in a local metal band called Wasted Youth. They'd been building a following around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, playing dive bars and small clubs, opening for bigger touring acts when they came through town. Michael had dreams of making it, of turning Wasted Youth into something more than just another local band that never escaped their hometown. The Dean ML had been his prized possession. He'd bought it used when he was 18, saving up money from working construction jobs during the day and playing shows at night. That guitar had become an extension of Michael's body, the voice he used to speak when regular words weren't enough. He could make that Dean sing or scream or growl, coaxing sounds out of it that seemed impossible, like the guitar itself was alive and responding to his emotions. When Michael got sick, he kept playing as long as he could. Even when the chemotherapy made him weak, even when his hair fell out and his weight dropped to nothing, he would sit in his bedroom and play that Dean ML for hours. The music became his therapy, his defiance against the disease that was consuming him from the inside. Jake, 5 years younger, would sit outside Michael's bedroom door and listen. Sometimes Michael would call him in, and they'd talk about music, about guitar technique, about the bands they loved. Michael had started teaching Jake to play when Jake was 12, passing down everything he'd learned, showing his little brother the architecture of power chords and the mechanics of palm muting and the secret language of metal guitar. Michael died 3 weeks after Jake's 17th birthday. The cancer had moved so fast at the end that there wasn't time to process it, wasn't time to prepare. One day Michael was weak but fighting, and the next day he was gone. The funeral had been surreal, like something happening to someone else's family. Michael's bandmates had played acoustic versions of Wasted Youth songs at the service, and then it was over, and Michael was in the ground, and life was supposed to somehow continue. But for the Morrison family, life didn't continue. It collapsed. Jake's father, Robert Morrison, had been a shift supervisor at a manufacturing plant for 19 years. The company downsized 6 weeks after Michael's funeral. Robert was 53 years old, suddenly unemployed with medical bills from Michael's treatment, stacked so high they seemed to touch the ceiling. The insurance had covered some of it, but not nearly enough. Not even close. The bills kept coming, each one another knife wound. $23,000 in outstanding medical debt. The collection calls started. Then the mortgage payment became impossible. Robert had found part-time work at a hardware store, but it paid a fraction of what he'd been making. Jake's mother, Linda, had been working as a receptionist at a dental office, but her hours got cut. By July, they were 2 months behind on the mortgage. The bank sent a letter. Bring the account current by September 1st, or foreclosure proceedings would begin. They needed $4,000, and they had no way to get it. They'd already sold almost everything of value. The second car, gone. Linda's jewelry, gone. The riding lawnmower, the power tools, the furniture from the living room, all gone. But they were still $3,500 short. That's when Jake had made the decision that was tearing him apart from the inside. He'd gone to Michael's room, which his mother had kept exactly as Michael left it, like a shrine. The Dean ML had been hanging on the wall mount where Michael always kept it. Jake had stood there for a long time, just looking at it, remembering every lesson Michael had taught him, every conversation they'd had while that guitar passed between them. Then he'd taken it down, put it in its case, and driven to Guitar Center. It was 3:47 in the afternoon when the pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. Jake barely noticed it at first. He'd stopped paying attention to vehicles coming and going. But then he heard boots on pavement, heavy footsteps approaching, and he looked up to see a man walking toward him. The man wore camouflage cargo shorts, a black tank top, and had a distinctive goatee that was dyed bright pink at the end. His arms were covered in tattoos, and he wore wraparound sunglasses despite the brutal sun. He moved with the particular swagger of someone who'd spent a lot of time on stages, that rock star posture that's impossible to fake. He stopped in front of Jake and looked down at the guitar case. "That a Dean ML?" the man asked. His voice was friendly, curious, with a Texas drawl that felt genuine. "Yes, sir," Jake said quickly, sitting up straighter. "1991 model, black with the lightning bolts. There's some wear on it, but it plays perfect. My brother took really good care of it." The man crouched down, and that's when Jake got a better look at his face. Something about him seemed familiar, but Jake couldn't quite place it. Texas was full of guys who looked like they played in bands. "Mind if I take a look?" the man asked. "Please," Jake said, his voice catching slightly. The man opened the case carefully, almost reverently. He looked at the Dean ML for a long moment without touching it, just taking it in. Then he lifted it out of the case with the practiced ease of someone who'd handled thousands of guitars. He didn't plug it in, just held it, feeling its weight, running his fingers over the frets, checking the action, examining the wear patterns on the body and neck. "This guitar's been played hard," the man said, but there was approval in his voice. "You can tell someone loved this thing. These wear marks, they tell a story. This wasn't some collector's piece sitting in a case. This was a working guitar. My brother played it at every show," Jake said. "He was in a band called Wasted Youth. They played all over Dallas and Fort Worth. He was really good. He was teaching me everything he knew." The man looked up, and Jake could see himself reflected in those sunglasses. Was? The man asked gently. Jake took a breath, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. Cancer. He died 4 months ago. He was 21. The doctors said it was aggressive. He fought it as long as he could, but... Jake's voice trailed off. The man was quiet for a moment, still holding the Dean ML. "I'm sorry," he said, and it sounded genuine, not like the empty platitudes people usually offered. Losing a brother, that's about the worst thing, especially when you're close. "We were," Jake said quietly. "He was my best friend. He taught me guitar. He taught me about music, about metal, about Pantera." The man's head tilted slightly at the mention of Pantera. "So why are you selling his guitar?" he asked. "This is obviously something special." I can see it meant everything to him. The tears wanted to come, but Jake fought them back. "My dad lost his job after my brother died. We're drowning in medical bills from the cancer treatment. We're about to lose our house. We're $3,500 short on the mortgage, and if we don't pay by September 1st, the bank forecloses. This guitar is the only thing we have left that's worth anything. I don't want to sell it. It's killing me, but I have to." The man carefully placed the Dean ML back in its case. Then he took off his sunglasses, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. He knew that face. Everyone who loved metal knew that face. It was impossible not to recognize those eyes, that pink goatee, the whole larger-than-life presence. "Holy shit," Jake whispered. "You're Dimebag Darrell." Dimebag smiled. That famous grin that had been on magazine covers and MTV. "Guilty as charged, brother. But right now, I'm just a guy who understands what that guitar means to you." He sat down on the curb next to Jake, which seemed surreal. Dimebag Darrell, one of the most famous guitarists in the world, sitting on a curb in a Guitar Center parking lot in the Texas heat. "Let me tell you something," Dimebag said, his voice losing the jovial tone and becoming serious. "I grew up in Arlington, not far from here. My brother Vinny and we didn't have much when we were kids. My old man was a musician, but that don't pay the bills most of the time. We scraped by. I remember what it's like when money's tight, when you're worried about keeping the lights on. I get it." Jake listened, unable to believe this was happening. "But here's the thing," Dimebag continued. "That guitar isn't just wood and metal and wires. That's your brother, man. That's every lesson he taught you, every hour you spent together, every part of his soul he put into those strings. You know what I mean? When your brother played that Dean, he was putting himself into it. His feelings, his dreams, everything he couldn't say with regular words. That's all still in there." "I know," Jake said, his voice breaking. "But I don't have a choice." Dimebag pulled out his wallet from his cargo shorts. He counted out bills, his fingers moving quickly. $3,500, $3,600, $3,700. He pressed the money into Jake's hand. Jake's eyes went wide. "No, Mr. Darrell, I can't take this. The guitar's only worth maybe $400 or $500. I can't." "You're keeping the guitar," Dimebag said firmly. "This isn't payment for the guitar. This is one musician helping another musician. This is one brother who understands what it's like to lose family helping another brother who's going through the same thing." "But this is too much," Jake protested, tears streaming down his face now. "I can't accept this." Dimebag put his hand on Jake's shoulder, and his grip was strong. "Listen to me very carefully. If you sell that guitar, you're losing the last living piece of your brother. You understand? When you play that Dean, your brother is right there with you. The music doesn't die. People die, but the music lives forever. That's the truth of it. That guitar is how your brother stays alive. Jake was sobbing now. 4 months of compressed grief pouring out all at once. Dimebag sat there, one hand on the kid's shoulder, letting him cry it out. A few people in the parking lot had started to notice. Someone pointed. Someone else pulled out a camera. Dimebag waved them off. "Give us a minute, folks. Just helping someone out here." When Jake could finally speak again, his voice was raw. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Dimebag smiled. "Because someone did something similar for me once. Because metal isn't just music, it's a family. We take care of our own. And because I can see you've got the fire in you. Your brother saw it too. That's why he taught you. You're going to be a great guitar player someday. But only if you keep that Dean and play it every single day. Promise me you'll do that." "I promise," Jake said. "I swear to God, I'll never sell it." "Good man," Dimebag said. He stood up, putting his sunglasses back on. "Now go home. Pay that mortgage. Save your family's house. And tonight you take out that Dean ML and you play it. You play it loud. You play it hard. You play all the stuff your brother taught you. And when you play, he'll be right there listening. I guarantee it." More people were approaching now, recognizing Dimebag. He turned to leave, but Jake called out one more time. "Mr. Darrell, how can I ever repay you?" Dimebag looked back and grinned. "Pass it forward, brother. Someday, when you see someone who needs help, someone who's struggling with music or family or whatever, you help them. That's how you repay me. That's how the whole thing works." Jake Morrison never sold Michael's Dean ML. He paid the mortgage that week, saving his family's house. And every single night, he took out that guitar and played it until his fingers hurt. He got better. Much better. By the time he was 20, he was playing in bands around Texas. He never became famous, never played stadiums like Dimebag, but he made a living doing session work and teaching guitar. And he told the story of that day in the Guitar Center parking lot to everyone who would listen. In December 2004, when the news broke that Dimebag Darrell had been shot and killed on stage in Columbus, Ohio, Jake Morrison sat in his apartment holding Michael's Dean ML and cried for hours. He played every Pantera song he knew, played until his fingers bled, played until he couldn't play anymore. 10 years later, Jake was teaching guitar at a music store in Fort Worth. One of his students was a 15-year-old kid named Carlos, whose father had been killed in Afghanistan. The kid had talent but no money for a decent guitar. After a lesson one day, Jake made a decision. He went to his car and came back with Michael's Dean ML. "I want you to have this," Jake said. Carlos's eyes went wide. "Mr. Morrison, I can't. Everyone knows that story. That's Dimebag's guitar." "No," Jake said. "This was my brother's guitar. Dimebag just made sure I kept it, but he also told me to pass it forward. This guitar belongs to whoever needs it most. Right now, that's you." Carlos took the Dean ML with shaking hands. "One day," Jake said, "you'll pass this guitar to someone else who needs it. That's how my brother stays alive. That's how Dimebag stays alive. That's how the music never dies." Today, Michael Morrison's Dean ML is still out there somewhere, still being played. And everyone who's held that guitar knows its history. They know about Michael, who fought cancer and lost. They know about Jake, who almost sold it and didn't. And they know about Dimebag Darrell, who understood that some things matter more than money. The music doesn't die. It transforms. It travels. It finds whoever needs it most. And somewhere in Texas, that black Dean ML with the white lightning bolts is still screaming through an amplifier, keeping all of them alive.